Has it been difficult for you being in Moscow, Idaho? I mean, away from Boise, away from Spokane, away from Seattle, away from virtually, you kind of in the middle of the Northwest and by yourself.
It has been. It's been very difficult in a couple of ways. Number one, nobody comes to Moscow, Idaho for the wine. Now they get here and it's a pleasant surprise to find that there is a local winery and a good local winery. So that's nice. But we're now trying to develop the wine industry in this region, and as a matter of fact, since 2004, there are 4 small startup wineries between Pullman, Washington, Lewiston, and Clarkston. So we now have a total of 5. Now 5's not quite enough, but if we had 10 wineries, we could be a wine destination. The same way that I or friends will go to Spokane where there's a dozen wineries in Spokane. If we had 10 wineries within a 30-mile range, they would come here. The second way that being in Pullman and Moscow has been difficult is when you're buying equipment, when you're buying supplies, you have to consider what is the delivered cost of the goods. And this is not on main routes. So equipment that may have a catalog price of $3,000 for a tank delivered in Moscow, Idaho may be $4,000. So you have to be very smart about purchasing supplies, purchasing equipment. I do things well in advance so that many times suppliers, if you give them enough time, they can piggyback sending my order in the same truck with a larger shipment of supplies to another larger producer someplace. So I've had to be smart that way because it has raised the production cost of items. I started buying grapes from Paul when he was still managing the vineyard that he is now one of the owners in Champoux LLC. And so I've been buying grapes from Paul for probably 16 years. And Paul and I have a tremendous relationship. He and his wife Judy, wonderful people. And I think the basis, or this is how it looks from my end, and Paul may have a different answer, but I always show up on time. I order my grapes months in advance, so I'm easy to deal with. My checks never bounce, and I win awards with his grapes, and all of those things are good for Paul. Also, as a courtesy to Paul and a help for me, I keep my crusher stemmer over there and allow Paul to use that for other small clients, so it helps him provide service to other people, and it assists me so I don't have to lug that thing back and forth. But most recently, one of the nicest things they've done is Paul's wife Judy has a very small planting. She calls it the Lady Hawk planting of orange muscat grapes, and I'd been trying for years to acquire those grapes because I really wanted to work with orange muscat, and I was lucky enough to have them sell me their orange muscat grapes. And so it's just in our second year of production. The first year, our late harvest orange muscat from the Lady Hawk grapes took one of only 3 medals that were awarded at the Los Angeles County Fair to late harvest orange muscats. So that was very nice. In terms of the price, again, as I was describing earlier, I do my pricing not based on cost plus profit. I do my pricing based on what will the market bear for wine. So I'm pricing my wine where they will sell. So I don't start out saying, gee, I worked so hard in this, I got to make $5 a bottle wholesale, or I'm not going to do it. Because doing that makes the wine unprofitable. With Paul's wines, or his fruit and my wines, again, I make enough money because I sell probably 70% of the wine here at the winery. So I'm getting full retail. If you're selling 70% or more of your wine wholesale because your production facility is out in the Boontoolies and you really don't get that much business, you have to sell it at ultimately a higher retail because of the 3-tiered distribution system. Since I'm not doing that, my average price, when you figure price at the different levels, and my average profit is such that I can afford to take a very long-term view and sell the wines in a very price-worthy spot. So the consumer has the advantage of being able to taste it, getting wine that they like and that they've tried at a very reasonable price. So it's worked very well, and I'm just happy that the wine's been so well received. The other thing in terms of our marketing, we do a lot of bridal shows. And the same way we talked about, if you have that group and you have 8 wine drinkers and 2 beer drinkers, either the beer drinker is unhappy or they leave. For bridal business, if a family comes in because they're going to have a wedding, they want one-stop shopping. They want the dinner wine for the rehearsal dinner and the reception dinner. They want the champagne for the champagne toast. Want it all. And so I can sometimes finesse people if they come in and say, we're having the rehearsal dinner, we'd like a nice Pinot Noir. And I'll say, well, I don't make a Pinot Noir, but I have a wonderful Limburg or a nice Merlot. Would you like to try those? And they can, if they like it, they'll go slide from one variety to another. It doesn't work when they say, and I need a champagne for the wedding toast. You can't really say, well, I don't have any champagne, but I have a very nice Chardonnay. How about, no, that's a non-starter. So I had to have champagne, was why I got into that initially, and it's worked very well. I got started making mead in about 1989 when a local gentleman that was a beekeeper asked me if I could make honey wine. And I said, gee, I think so. So we made a test batch, and he and I, me making it on a contract basis, got into the mead business. Probably, again, if it doesn't sound self-aggrandizing, I'm probably the principal mead maker in the Northwest. For instance, last year, 2006 Los Angeles County Fair, 4 medals were given to any honey-based wines, and we took 3 of them. So we've done quite well with the meads. But the other attraction for me, because I started the winery on a 15-year plan, and I was still working for the Department of Justice at that time, and making mead is non-seasonal. So here's the deal. If you're making grape wine, all of the grapes come in, and you have to deal with all of the grapes between nominally 1st of September and end of October. Everything's compressed. So that means that you have to have space, tankage to deal with your total production in a 2-month period. Making mead, or as another subset of that, I also make fruit wines. Mead is non-seasonal. So I can make plain honey wine, and have done it. Make it in January, anytime I want. We do fresh fruit meads, strawberry, raspberry, huckleberry. But those are berries that are ripening in late June and July. So I'm making the berry meads in August, and they're finished and in tanks rather than taking up space, because right where we're standing is where the fermenters go, by the time that the grape wines start. It tastes good at the first sip. So if wine is something new to you, if you wanted to introduce a relative to wine, don't give them a wonderful dry red Bordeaux for the first time, because they're going to say, that's awful. Okay? Give them something that tastes good. Okay? Good in the sense of being sweet, something that is very approachable. And so that's kind of how the market. Younger people and less regular wine drinkers. So it's not the folks, they're not buying mead instead of buying my award-winning Cabernet Sauvignon. They're buying mead instead of buying maybe a wine cooler. But that's fine. Probably in terms of the mead, it represents about half of my total case production. My single biggest seller is my huckleberry. Not only is it good, and it's now been copied by a number of folks that are actually flavoring grape wines, which we don't do. We see no reason to ruin perfectly good grape wine. But the huckleberry is the state berry of Idaho. It's sweet. It's got some nice packaging. So it's got a lot of appeal. Okay? Makes a good gift because everybody likes it, and you can't get more Idaho than Idaho huckleberries.